Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar today. I'm thrilled to see that there are actually over 300 people registered. For those who don't know, I'm Pamela Nathan, president of SAJAC and co-founder of CAN, and we're thrilled to be hosting the webinar today. CAN, which stands for Combat Anti-Semitism Now, is a grassroots community initiative with a goal to make a difference through education and by offering support to many anti-Semitism-specific projects. CAN established a 501c3 fund that is housed at the San Diego Jewish Community Foundation, allowing for tax-deductible donations. To date, CAN has provided support for many initiatives. We supported AJC, the American Jewish Committee, for their symposium on anti-Semitism, to Hillel, to provide armed guards to protect students attending the Hillel Center, to IAC, the Israeli-American Council, to fund the growth of 5 Minutes Today for Israel, to be able to send daily letters and petitions to government, academic institutions, companies, and other entities via email. We helped Mossab Hassan Yosef, the outspoken son of Hamas leader at UCSD. He was actually an Israeli undercover agent for 10 years and now advocates for Israel in the USA. He was a perfect fit to motivate students combating anti-Semitism on campus. We support Peer K-12, who were honored in Washington. They engaged directly with top government officials to tackle anti-Semitism in K-12 schools and address biased curriculum from an ethnic studies framework. CAN also supports the American Jewish Medical Association, founded by Dr. Yael Halas, a plastic surgeon from New York. This non-political, non-profit organization of Jewish healthcare professionals provides a safe, enriching community with a united voice for all Jewish healthcare workers to prevent anti-Semitism from making the medical workplace unsafe for Jewish doctors. To continue to be able to do this, we really need your help. So please consider making a generous donation on our website, cantakesaction.org, today. We are a small but vibrant and strong community living in precarious times. History will judge our action today as to whether we are able to preserve a safe Jewish future for the next generation. And now, it's a great honor that Israeli President Isaac Herzog has prepared a special message for our community here today. We'll now show the video he sent us. Thank you.
Shalom, dear friends. I am so pleased to offer a few words from Jerusalem as we come together to reaffirm the deep ties of solidarity, caring, and shared destiny at a critical moment for the Jewish people. There is no question that the Jewish people is facing a critical moment in our long history. In Israel, we're still battling terror organizations seeking to destroy the only Jewish state in the planet. Our hostages remain unthinkably in Hamas captivity at these very moments, over 10 months, and Jewish communities around the world are facing a tsunami of anti-Semitism. It is no longer confined to the margins. We see it charge forward from the halls of parliaments, international institutions, elementary school classrooms, and college campuses. It may attach itself this time to Israel, but it is hatred that is rooted and so familiar, age-old. It is our right and moral duty to stand up to it, to call it out, to remember and to remind others that there is an answer to hatred. The South African Jewish American community has been a clear and consistent moral voice, speaking out for Israel and launching, even before October 7th, the Combat Anti-Semitism Now initiative. These actions matter. They matter in offering a counter voice to hatred. They matter in reminding us that hatred is never normal and never okay. And they matter in reminding us that we have what it takes to stay strong, centered, and connected. I'm very grateful to SAJAC, to Pamela Gladstone Nathan, and all of its current and former leaders, members, and volunteers for hearing the call of the moment and taking action. Your voice matters, and I want you to know that as Israel's president, I want to hear that voice consistently and clearly. That's why my office is launching right in these moments an initiative we're calling Kol Ha'am, Voice of the People. It's a global Jewish council that will help us come together as a people to pool our resources, our intention, and our hearts to responding to the core issues facing our people. I hope you will choose to be part of it too. Chaverot vechaverim, may you continue to go from strength to strength. Bless you all. Am Yisrael.
Many of you are familiar with Eitan Chetayet and his social media posts advocating for Israel and Jewish people worldwide. My wife, Karine, and I had the pleasure and honor to meet with him during our recent visit to Israel. I was introduced to Eitan's work by one of my cousins who lives in Milan. I reached out to Eitan, given our same last names, sure that we're related. Additionally, another friend of mine sent me a link to a film that Eitan did about his father. After watching the film, my wife and I were convinced of the familial ties, as his father and my late father not only looked alike, but possessed very similar mannerisms. The story of the Chetayet clan begins its roots in Babylon, modern-day Iraq, where the Jewish community thrived until the rise of Nazi influences leading to the Farhud in the early 1940s, then the Declaration of Independence by Israel in 1948, and the subsequent airlift of the majority of the then 150,000 strong Jewish community to Israel in 1952. This resulted in the scattering of the Iraqi Jewish community throughout the world. For example, Eitan grew up in Hong Kong and through a circuitous route settled in Israel. I grew up in Tehran, Iran, and ultimately ended up in California. Israel, being the homeland of the Jewish people worldwide, whether in Israel or throughout the diaspora, epitomizes the feeling of one large family. All of you participating in the webinar today know this feeling, as we all have relatives, family, friends, and adopted families there. This one large family feeling rings true, especially since October 7th. Everyone knows somebody who's been affected, whether in one of the kibbutzim that were overrun by the terrorists, the Nova Festival, or the many soldiers and reservists serving in Gaza or in the north by Lebanon. As the global Jewish community faces an unprecedented surge of anti-Semitism, the power of reclaiming the Jewish narrative with positive and empowering messaging is more critical than ever. We're blessed to have very strong voices amongst us who are helping script a new narrative for Israel and Jews the world over. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Eitan Chetayet to you. Eitan has been one of the most prominent voices presenting the narrative. This Eitan's work has been shared organically by the State of Israel's accounts, their embassies, and various organizations fighting the good fight. Additionally, it is my pleasure to introduce Nicole Bernstein of Peer K-12, a very close friend of Eitan and his wife, as the moderator for this section of the program.
Thank you, Alan. So before we begin, actually, I just wanted to make a couple of housekeeping notes. We are seeing the questions coming in through the chat, so please continue to submit those. This webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to see parts of it later on. And I also just want to say that, of course, we all have been watching what's going on in Israel very, very closely the last couple of days, and especially now. So if there's a red alert while we are in this conversation, Eitan and his family will have to run down into the stairwell and hold tight for a couple of minutes. He asked that we stay on and wait for him to get back, which I guess is just how life is in Israel for the last, I don't know how many years, Eitan. It feels like it's been about 76 years, I suppose, but in that manner. But just so you know, we will wait here until you return, God willing, and then we will pick back up where we left off. So first of all, hi.
Hi.
Good day.
Hello to everyone. Can I just say thank you to Pamela and also Alan for just welcoming me, and to you, Tamar and Nicole, who have put this together. Thank you so much. And it's really nice to be with everyone. It's always a little weird. I can't see anyone, but I know that there are hundreds of people here. So hi, everyone, and I hope you're okay. Lots of love from Tel Aviv.
Yes. So I actually think that sort of, resonates with the messaging that you've been putting out. You and I have been talking about Hasbara and what we really need to be doing as a people for so many years. And you've been doing this work for many, many years, but it really was after 10/7 that things really took off. I mean, you went viral before. In fact, the I'm That Jew video started out as a letter almost to the haters, right? And then you turned it into an article, and then you turned it into a video. And that was all the way back in 2015, right? So can you just take me back to 2015 and what was going on then when you created I'm That Jew? And then sort of follow the arc, what's been going on the ground for you and Dina and the kids, and then also in the sphere of the digital advocacy that you've been doing.
Sure. Well, just a slight correction. I didn't write I'm That Jew to the haters. I actually wrote it to a friend of ours, Nicole. We have a friend in common. Without naming her, she introduced me to my wife in Israel. And the reason why I wrote I'm That Jew is not because of anti-Semitism. It wasn't directed at anti-Semitism. It actually was a letter to my people. And the woman in question was living in France. Right after Charlie Hebdo, I reached out to her, and a few Jewish people had been killed in a supermarket. And her father-in-law and her husband had been there that morning, and they missed the attack. So, of course, I reached out to her to ask how she was doing, and she said, well, you know what? I'm terrified, and I don't tell anyone I'm Jewish. I've been here. I don't tell anyone I'm Jewish. I don't tell anyone I'm Israeli. And of course, we chatted a bit more. And then that night, I sat down, and I think in the space of half an hour, I just wrote I'm That Jew. And what it was a letter to her. It was a letter to my Jewish sister, to my Jewish brothers and sisters, reminding us of who we are and reminding us that no matter what, we should be proud. We should be unapologetic, and we should be confident in who we are, and not to let anyone take our narrative away from us, to not cower. And that was the reason that I put I'm That Jew out there into the world as you rightly said, as a written piece, and then that went viral, and then I decided to make a piece, which then went viral as well. And over the years, I've continued with, you know, some people call it advocacy, being an influencer, and I'm not. I mean, you know me, Nicole. I'm a family guy. I live here. You know, for the last year, I've lived in this little room doing all the work that you guys are seeing. But I'm just a regular family guy, and I own my little branding agency. And I've just never, I've never thought twice about saying I'm Jewish ever, and I've never thought twice about saying I'm Israeli ever, unless 2 times I was in some Arab countries and I didn't feel safe. I think that what's changed since October 7th is, and it hasn't changed yet, what's changed is that people are starting to speak up. And I say starting because we're not doing it right yet. But there's been an awakening. It's something that I've been doing for 15 years. And it's really important to speak up. And I'm glad to see that people are starting to speak up, but we need to see more people speaking up, and not online, in the context of the physical world, in the context of our workplaces, in the context of our communities and our friends, in politics, in all industries. This is the big thing that hasn't changed yet, but it's starting to change very, very slowly. And my agenda is to fuel that. My agenda is not to spread facts, although I do. It's not to talk about the situation in Israel, although I do. It's not just to talk about anti-Semitism, although I do. My agenda is crystal clear focused, which is to make people feel that they can say they're Jewish.
So I think, I'm going to
Literally,
interrupt you on that, because just to kind of amplify that piece, because I remember when I first read I'm That Jew, and before it was a video. And, you know, people who know me know I'm very outspoken myself, but something about I'm That Jew spoke to me on so many levels. It was my gut, my soul, my heart, my head. And it put the words into my mouth, you know, and I think that is also what resonated so much for other people, is that, you know, as all of us, wherever we live, we're seeing things that are happening around us. And, you know, just like hate is unfortunately very contagious, I think courage is as well. And I think you putting those words down gave people the courage to sort of say, yeah, you know, being a Jew isn't one thing. We're not all the same. We don't all agree, which is, you know, I think one of the funniest things that people outside the Jewish community think about us is that we're all on the same page, which we are definitely not, but that's actually a good thing. And I think I'm That Jew really sort of framed that in a way where we are a lot of things. We are such individuals, and yet we are also this collective. And I think that that's resonated.
Yeah, I think that, well, the spirit of I'm That Jew was, we are all different. And when people attack us and we hear the attacks, they're attacking us with the stereotypes of what we are. And you hear it over and over again from all people and all sorts of people in the media. You know, the misconception, the misperception amongst our own communities. And that's why we kind of like shrink when we hear that. I don't want to say cower like it's a negative, but we kind of, we fade a little into the background. And I think that I'm That Jew was meant to remind people that you might call me a money grabber, you might call me an apologist for genocide, you might call me a white colonialist, you might call me all these things, but you know what? Fuck you. You don't get to define me, because I'm Deborah Messing, okay? I'm that Will and Grace Jew. Or I'm Ilan Ramon. I'm that astronaut Jew. Or I'm Alan on this call right now. I'm that father of so many children Jew. Or I'm that brand builder Jew. Or you're that. We are many, many different things. And the reason to put all of that down in a narrative was to break the stereotype, for sure, but was to remind us that they don't get to tell us who we are. We get to define who we are. And as a brand builder, I can tell you that the reason why I think that I'm That Jew is still resonating is because it's very true. It's grounded in our authenticity and our values. It's very relevant to us, and it's very relevant to the people who want to know what being Jewish actually is. And it's different in the context that we are different. I mean, we're the same in many, many ways as many people, but we're call it a culture, a religion, a people, a race, a community. We're different, but we should be proud of those differences, because ultimately these things are good. And the idea was to instill pride. And I know that we want to talk about pride because that's part of what I'm doubling down on as a strategy in the long run. And remember, I'm a little bit different than most of the advocates out there who are doing phenomenal work. I mean, I mentioned Deborah Messing, Joe Paul, Lee Trink, Noah Tishby, lots and lots of people who have their own voice and are doing wonderful things. But my agenda is to create a true and authentic narrative, which is not something made up. It's based on the truth of who we are. It's based on the Jewish people. And I have a bit of a unique perspective because that's what I've been doing for a living for almost 30 years with Apple and Facebook and Google and YouTube and all these big companies. And that's what I'm trying to do for the Jewish people from this little room with my wife.
Well, I mean, that's something that Alan sort of alluded to before, is that you really are a global citizen, you know, obviously Israeli parents, but Israeli parents who had to flee. And, you know, you grew up in a lot of different places. You have worked as a professional content, words person, right? I mean, that's your thing, is words, and words matter, and how you use words and which words you use when, etc. And so I'm curious, having been such a global citizen and knowing what for clients, you know, you're doing branding that needs to resonate across different cultures. What do you see us as the global, you know, I'm That Jew community, each one of us with our own uniqueness? Like, let's say we were the client, this new client that you have. What's the strategy that we need to be taking with our brand and getting the message out? And I know there's a lot of comments out there about how Israel doesn't do good PR and, you know, things like that. And we can talk about that.
It doesn't. I mean,
but this is for the Jewish people.
Yeah, this is, I mean, you said I'm That Jew, but I think you mean the global Jewish population. Mm-hmm. Look, I mean, I've said this several times, and I'm going to keep saying it because new people are coming on board, and I think they need to know that that we're an amazing people. I mean, I really think that we are, and I think that there's a lot to celebrate. We have our issues. We have our share of not so great people and things not to be proud of, but that's just like anyone else. I think comparatively, and you just need to look at the data, overwhelmingly, we contribute a lot to the world. And we have a lot to be proud of. I think that when you have a people and you're a pluralistic society with a lot of different voices, it's very hard to brand you. And it's not, if I just back up a little bit, people are jaded by advertising. Some people are jaded by branding, and rightly so, because you have a lot of successful advertising and successful brands, but not necessarily good brands. And I'll tell you what that means. That basically means that they might not be true. Like, for example, the Palestinian brand. It's a great brand in terms of its results. It really is. My hat off to them. But all of their narrative is based on a lie. Maybe not all of their narrative. I'm sorry. A lot of their narrative is based on a lie. And we don't need to talk about what that is, because being the Jewish community, I think we all know where the lies are. But they've become very successful. It's because the people behind SJP and the people behind Voices for Peace and the people behind the Palestinians who are behind those people and behind those people, there's an agenda, and the agenda is to eradicate the Jewish people, quite literally. Yeah. So what did they do? They invested a lot of money and a lot of time in coming up with a vision. And that vision was Israel is the enemy. Israel is bad. Israel is genocide. Israel is apartheid. Israel is the bad IDF, not the good IDF. Lots and lots of narratives that ultimately ladder up to one thing. And that one thing is Israel is bad. Okay? So you have a vision, you have leadership, and someone made a decision to invest in it. And they have a very captive audience, which is, without saying anything bad about Muslims, because I would never, we are around 15 to 16 million people, the Jewish people, but you have a base of 1.6 billion Muslims or 1.9 billion Muslims, whatever the number is, that are naturally going to, a percentage, a sizable percentage are going to get behind the narrative of these people because they're a tribe. It's tribal, and tribal mentality means that sometimes you just listen to what you're being told and you fall in line. We've never done that as a people.
Also, sometimes it's access, right? I mean, they don't necessarily.
Well, yeah, but we never have done that, because I want to answer your question. We have never invested in narrative. Now, you think about a company that is, and I've said this as well, you think about a company that's out there in the marketplace, and it's got people, it's got a board, it's got a product, and it's operating and it's selling. Along comes another company, and they have an amazing narrative. They've invested in their messaging. They're spending money on marketing their messaging. They have a vision, and this other company, ours, doesn't. So what happens in time? If you don't invest in your narrative, then this other company hijacks your narrative. And if you're not careful, it'll put you out of business. And it'll definitely put you out of business if it's got more investments than marketing, if the other company isn't doing anything, and they hate your guts and they want to put you out of business.
And the consistency.
Right. And so we haven't, as a people, it's as a failure on beyond Israel. It's a catastrophic failure of Jewish leadership that has resulted in all the people on this call not being protected from this onslaught of hatred. There's no counter narrative. It's not even that we don't have a fucking counter narrative. We've lost our narrative. And the crazy thing, Nicole, is we have the best brand in the world. We just have not deployed it yet. We are a values-driven brand. Okay. And it's the Jewish people, it's not Israel.
Yeah.
So I think that that's what needs to happen. And it's still not happening, because I can tell you that with all the work that I'm doing, with 250 million views in the last, so many years, and 150 in the last, year alone, with all the work that you're seeing, I'm still not approached by any Jewish organization, the State of Israel, who has shared my work, who I know the people who are doing the communications, and they're between a rock and a hard place, because they want to do the work, but they don't have money. So they say, Eitan, can we please use your material? I'm like, of course, use it. No funding, no investment. And that's got to change, because narrative and investing in narrative will change hearts and minds. And when you change hearts and minds, then you can start making a difference in the public sphere. You can change policy. You can influence, and it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think when you are also kind of looking at this from a business perspective, those of us in business, you can have the best product in the world, but if you don't invest in marketing to your audience, no one's going to know what you have, and so you won't be successful. And so being able to invest in that, getting your message out, is so critical, and it really has been something that's been missing. I almost want to, there's this note that we talked about earlier, which is, I'm that Jew and we're so different, and that's a great thing. Do you wonder sometimes if maybe the fact that we are so different and we do have so many different opinions and narratives has prevented us from coalescing around one clear message?
Not at all. There's no leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership, listen, think of Apple, think of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs didn't create the narrative. He hired the best people for marketing, the best people for product development, the best people for hardware, the best people for software, the best CTO, the best distributions people, the best manufacturing people. But what he did was he made a decision and he doubled down on that decision. And by the way, Apple is a great case study because Apple, Steve's vision was very simple. His vision was this, and get ready for it, a Mac in every home.
Yeah.
That was his decision. My agenda, if I could get support and if I can get this thing really going, because everything I've done has been, from here with no real support, my vision is quite simple. Every single Jewish person on the planet can say that they're Jewish. That's my vision. And the reason why that's important is because of all the people who have never done anything, maybe on this call, in terms of public advocacy, in terms of speaking up. I think that the first step is to be able to just say it publicly.
Yeah.
If you can say that you're Jewish, if you can say I'm that Jew, if you can say I'm Jewish, then that's a commitment. It's like when you talk to me, Nicole, about when I wrote I'm that Jew. I'm that Jew. I sat down and I wrote it. And if you think about what writing is a commitment. I see all the thumbs and the hearts going up now, so I'm enjoying that. Thank you, guys.
Me too.
When you commit something to writing, then that's a step. When you take that writing and you put it online like I did, and remember when I put I'm That Jew online, which has now been seen 15 million times, I wrote, my name is Eitan Chatayat and I'm that Jew. And this was quite a while ago. That's a commitment. I'm not taking that back. And saying that you're Jewish is the first step. Now, everyone can do things differently after that. Does making the decision to say that you're Jewish mean that when you get a new job and you're in the conference room with all the bagels and they introduce you, it's as simple as saying, hi, my name is Tamara Caspi. I'm a mother of so many children. I'm Jewish. I've been working in this field for 10 years. I mean, that's it. That's a step.
Yeah.
And then maybe after that, it's about being a part of the community. Maybe it's about, and I'm not even talking about online, maybe it's about going to a demonstration. Maybe it's about wearing something. Like I make these, these chains, and this one says that won't ever back down Jew.
Yep.
That's what it says here. So when I wear this, sometimes people come up to me and they're like, oh, what does that say? And I'm saying, oh, I won't ever back down Jew. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And it's a conversation starter.
100%.
Saying it is the first step towards doing things. But if we don't push people saying it and owning it, even though they're scared, then we are not going to get out of this mess ever. And I don't think that there's ever been a movement towards making this happen. And I know it's scary. And listen, I grew up in Hong Kong and London, and I faced anti-Semitism. Boys and schools would come to our school, they'd throw rocks at us. We'd have to have security taking us to and fro the tube station. But when you wear something, when you say that you're Jewish, when you post online, you are making a commitment to who you are, and there is nothing to be sorry about. There's nothing to be apologetic about it for. And by the way, I'm the first to criticize my government when we do wrong, whether it's left wing or whether it's right wing. When settlers do awful things in the territories, I say something. When we commit a crime, I talk about it because that's a value, and there's no shame in saying you did something wrong. On the contrary.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's very important to speak it. And that's why my agenda is to keep telling people, you're Jewish, you can say it. And I'm not one of those guys that's going to be like, if they're not saying it now, a lot of influencers are like, fuck them. If they're not saying it now, you're never going to change their minds. Bullshit. Every single person needs to come on board. There's only 15, 16 million of us. People need to come out when they're ready, and we need to encourage them to do so and not put them down. Sorry.
But I think actually what you're saying is also, it's so true. Everyone can do it in their own way. And we see this a lot with the students who we help in K through 12. There's a huge indoctrination, movement against Israel, against the West, against Jews, that a lot of our younger generation is really kind of facing, something I never had to deal with when I was in K through 12 here in this country. But we are seeing these Jewish students standing up and saying, you can't say that. I'm Jewish and you can't say that. And, whereas before, I think there was a lot of, well, I'm Jewish, but I don't support Israel. I don't support Bibi. I don't, it was like this, you felt like, not me or you, but like you felt like you had to maybe preface, I'm that Jew with, but I can't, etc. So I think that this sort of standing up and saying, this is who I am, and all of the different ways that I present myself in the world all boil down to one core thing, which is I'm a Jew. And I think that how that
or not. I mean, it doesn't boil down to one thing for everyone, but maybe to you it does, maybe it does to me, but it's a part of your identity that is a shame if you hide for so many reasons. But yeah, I hear what you're saying and I agree.
Yeah. So we want to get into some of the Q&A, but I just have one last question. It's kind of a complicated one, but you mentioned a lot of other influencers and a lot of other people, and there's so much content out there. And,
there's a great one. Deborah Messing.
The Will and Grace. Yeah. Well,
she's amazing. There's so many people. David Draymond.
There's so I love those. Yeah. And by the way,
amazing. Just people are speaking up.
We can get those postcards from Eitan and we can print them up, locally, or we can send the files to you so you can print them up and have them in your community if you want. So, just let us know afterwards. But
yeah, no payment necessary. Just
print. Are you seeing a trend, or do you see a trend with how the advocacy is coming out and the conflict, I guess, between the Jewish or Israeli Hasbara influencers, the interactions there? Because, something that we deal with a lot, at least in the school, is there's a lot of, especially now leading up to the elections, there's a lot of political angst, and there's a lot of, viewpoints on either side. And if you don't think this, then you're not, real work.
The division.
Yeah. And it's really hard to navigate. And so I'm just wondering if you're seeing any trends of things that really resonate across all, denominations, political perspectives, things that just are.
I think that what I'm finding right now on social media, and I'm not the only one, is there's a lot of intolerance to the other. And I think that it's fine to, and you might have seen that Shai Davidai and I are working closely and we've become friends, and we're working a lot on this. Look, it doesn't matter if I'm right or left. I mean, there are days when I'm like, Trump is the way to go. There are days when I'm like, Democrats. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are allowed to feel comfortable to express your point of view, and you won't get shit from it. You won't get hate from it. There's a level of intolerance within our own community that is unacceptable. And borderline hatred. And there's two reasons why that's unacceptable. One is because it's just fucking unacceptable. You just don't do that to people. Unless they're really rude or spewing hate, then you have carte blanche to, hey, wait a second. But if someone is expressing an opinion and you don't agree with it, then shut the fuck up and just accept that they have a different point of view and listen to them, because maybe they have a point. The idea that you can put people down because they're Republicans is shameful. The idea that you can put someone down because she is a vice president who's going to potentially be a president and you don't like her, and you're calling her Kamalek after Amalek, is disgraceful. And it needs to stop. People need to be more civil. This is not who we are. These are not our values. These are not Jewish values. We have to be tolerant. We have to accept different points of view. Look, in yeshiva, what do they do all day? They bloody argue. They debate. They fight each other. They debate, but there's a way. And the what you want to say is critical. And I don't think that anyone should stop. Shai and I, for example, we disagree about like so much, but we'll agree to disagree. You know, it doesn't get ugly. And I think that we are at that point where every single one of us, every single person on this Zoom has a responsibility to check themselves, because what you're saying is valid, it's important, it's necessary, but the how you say it is critical. Because if you really do want to change hearts and minds, do you really think you're going to change hearts and minds by hating on other people, by shaming them? And I think that there's a lot of that I'm not saying the advocacy space, it's beyond the advocacy space. It's also people between people. But I think that because for some reason people are following idiots like us, and some of us are a little bit more aggressive, then other people think it's okay too. And it's not. I save my venom for people who are way out of line. And then, you know, I wrote Shalom motherfucker. So, you know, I know how to put people down if I want to, but we don't have that luxury, you know, like we don't, we're too few.
I want to get to the Q&A. I saw that piece as not, you know, putting someone down, but saying, if you can't even agree that I have a right to exist in this world as I am, I don't need you in my life. And that to me is different. And so, you know, again, I think I actually agree with you completely. I see this. It's not just in the Jewish community, not just online. It's everything is so divisive. You know, here in the States, we're leading up into election, and the whole point of the divisiveness is to tear us apart as a country. And I think, you know, to me, the Tikkun Olam really starts with, well, we should show as an example how you can disagree and debate with one another, because we are so different in our opinions, in a way that actually brings better understanding about how the other person thinks or sees things. You might not agree with it, but at least you'll understand them better, and vice versa. And I think that is the Tikkun Olam that I think, you know, we really need to be putting out there, is how do we debate? How do we argue? How do we get to these, you know, tough decisions in a way where we are respecting each other's perspectives, and arguing in a way that we might be able to come out with a better result afterwards. So we could talk all day long about this, but I really want to be able to get to some of the questions. I want some of the people to be able to, you know, have some answered. So I'm going to turn it over to Tamar Caspi, who has been taking in some of these questions and, you know, from the audience, and we'll see how many we can get in the next 10 minutes.
See what we can do.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm here for however long you want me. I'm here for you, you know, until the missiles go.
Yes. It was a very busy night, or morning for you. My red alerts were going off like crazy last night. There was just heaps of praise for you, and I'll make sure that you get a copy of all of the comments, because
thank you. I don't sing any of them. Thank you, everyone.
But there was just lots of people just saying how much they adore you, and one person said that she owns the "I'm That Jew" necklace proudly, and she wears it proudly, and people ask her about it, sparks discussion, enriched her life in so many ways. And as we wrap the Q&A up, there will be QR codes that I'll make available for people to support Eitan, to get the merch, to buy the jewelry, and then I will follow up with an email as well with all of the links of how you can support Eitan, who does this for free. So some of the questions.
Yeah.
One of them that stood out to me was, if I can find it, because there's two places people are putting questions. You are my hero. Please do more with Shai. You are the future. Am Yisrael Chai. Here's a good one. Is showing your a Jew by action more effective than declaring it as part of introducing who you are? For example, explaining that you can't partake in some activities because you're celebrating Shabbat with family.
I think you just need to be, I mean, just be who you are. I mean, it's not that, I mean, I could come up with some bullshitty philosophical answer, but that's not me. I'll be straight. You just say you're Jewish. Like literally, you know, you want to, you know, you make it a point to say that at some stage, and then you involve yourself in Jewish community stuff. And I'm a secular Jew, but still, you know, when I was living in Hong Kong, when I was living in London, when I was in New York and Boston, you know, I was a part of the community and I was a part of the bigger community. I think that if you keep Shabbat, then you keep Shabbat. If you are on Rosh Hashanah, you want to take a day off work, you say, I'm taking a day off work. I mean, I don't think it's that complicated. If you feel that that's what you need to do, then you do it. I think it comes down to one thing, Tamar, which is a philosophy that I try and teach my children. I've made a lot of enemies, actually in corporate world. I wouldn't say enemies, but I would rub people the wrong way. Maybe even in the influencer space, I rub people the wrong way. And I think a lot of it is because I'll do what I feel is right. And I won't be scared to do it. It's not that I don't have fear sometimes. I do. But one of the things that I like to tell my children is it's okay to be scared. It's normal to be scared. But what are you going to do with it? Are you going to not be who you are because you're so scared? Or are you going to take a chance and be who you are because it's who you are, and do the things that you want to do, whether it's because you're Jewish or something else, or go where you want to go, or say what you want to say, or act like how you want to act, or are you going to let fear drive you? So to me, this is much more than just being Jewish. It's a perspective on life. Are you going to like stifle yourself? I think that's a very harmful thing to do for an individual, whether you're gay and in the closet, whether you're a woman in some type of maybe entrepreneurial sphere and you're afraid to rub the alpha males the wrong way. Are you going to not do what you think you should do, or are you going to be scared and do it anyway? My approach to life has always been, I'm gonna do it anyway. And it's gotten me into some trouble, but the reward has been good for me. Like, not good for, you know, followers and likes and all that bullshit. None of that matters. It's been good for me and my soul. I'm living a very authentic life. And I encourage anyone who's listening, if you feel that you want to say something connected to your identity, connected to being in touch with Israeli culture, connected to being Jewish, religious, festival, whatever it is, you just do it. And you stand by.
How does the same message, and this is, I can't help but bring it back to what the work Nicole and I and Evie do with Pirkei 12, but how can we relay this message for our students and our young children to safely be proud of being Jews around their friends, whether it's at school or sports, socially, what have you, is that while I have no problem loudly, proudly stating I'm that Jew, the children need to make, we instill in them Jewish pride, but there might be, how do you
you just do it. You just do it. I'll tell you how. When I was growing up in Hong Kong, there were not a lot of Jewish kids. It was a small Jewish community. Certainly not a lot of Israelis. I would say I'm Israeli. Why? Because my parents told me to say I'm Israeli.
Yeah.
I would say I'm Jewish. Why? Because my parents were, again, we're secular, but we have nothing to be ashamed of. I'm Jewish. And it comes from those people. So if you look at the age range here, pretend probably between the ages of 20 to maybe 75, 80 years old here, it's on us.
Yeah.
When I say failed Jewish leadership, I also mean us as a community. We have not instilled in our children a sense of, it's not Jewish pride and we have to Jewish pride. It's values. And your values come from somewhere, and you should be proud of where those values come from. And you should speak up against the lies about where these lies, you should speak up against where these lies are coming from. So if you're in school, yeah, you know what? You might get we say in Hebrew, a chapka to the back of the head. Then they're going to get a chapka to the back of the head. I've been through worse. It just the price of a little bit of fear is not worth it. Now, I'm not saying go to the Arab district in France and take off your shirt and it's an I'm that Jew shirt. But do you know what I mean? Like, we need to all do it. The reason why I'm also doubling down on Jewish pride as a narrative, if I may, and a slight, maybe I'm digressing a little bit, is because if I do it and I do it alone, then I'm going to be vilified in public. But if I do it and you do it tomorrow, and then Nicole joins in, all of us, there's 3 of us at the demonstration, and then Alan comes in and Pamela comes in. Now there's 5 of us. Then there's 10 of us. Then there's 50 of us. Then there's 500 of us. And then what will happen is we, as a community, will feel more emboldened, as opposed to doing the opposite, which is don't say anything and retreat. Opposite, say something, encourage your neighbors, your community. My dream is to see in a San Diego a demonstration with everyone wearing just I'm that Jew shirts. Not because I'm trying to sell merchandise, buy it from anyone, but it's a sign of courage. Now, what happens when you start doing that? You start affecting the people in your community. But who else sees that? Your allies see that. These people who are so quiet against all the lies, well, it's probably because there's some truth to it. Fuck no. I'm not going to let that slide. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to denounce. I'm confident. Then they start seeing that. And then maybe they come to a demonstration. Maybe you send them a petition to sign. Maybe you put political pressure on them. Maybe you say, hey, that was borderline anti-Semitic behavior. It's a trickle-down effect. So no one has invested 100% in that. Speak your Jewishness, whether you're secular, religious, or otherwise. I think that's a way that we will help our children ultimately. But it's on us to do that.
I 100% agree. Starts in the home. And I wanted to say, if anybody, I know we scheduled this webinar from 10 to 11 Pacific. If you need to drop off, we will be sending the video along with all the links of how to support Eitan and President Herzog and all of the sponsors and community partners that supported this webinar. But I have a great question here that kind of tiptoes towards what you mentioned about the public perspective. So is the media angle on Israel and the public perspective sharply divergent? Statistics have shown the public is still largely on Israel's side, but the media makes it sound as if the reverse is true, while pushing falsehoods about the country. Have your personal interactions revealed this to be in the affirmative meaning pro-Israel?
Again, I don't want to bullshit anyone. I'm no expert. I'm not, Emily Schrader, or I don't know. I can tell you that death sells. Death is exciting. Leading a good life isn't. So, what the Palestinian, and I feel so bad for most of the Palestinians. Most of the Palestinians are known, or the Palestinian people are known as victims. They're known as a very poor people. And when I say poor, I don't mean financially. I mean poor, woe is me. And I feel awfully for them. But that's because their leaders have made them look that way, and their allies have made them look that way. And they make them look that way because when you portray that image in today's world, and when I say today, I mean the world of the last 30 or 40 years, then you garner sympathy. And when you show dead babies, you garner sympathy. And it doesn't matter how the baby died. It doesn't matter that the baby died because a terrorist organization instigated all of this crap. It doesn't matter that a baby died in a household that was brought up to hate Jews just because they're brought up to hate Jews. None of that matters. What matters is it sells. And the media is going to go after what sells. Now, I remember when I was a soldier in the IDF, and I saw a little bit of the conflict way back in the day, and you'd literally see the media coming and setting up, and you guys all know this, they're coming and setting up like hundreds of cameras on a block where they know that Palestinians are going to start going crazy, and it would sell. We are up against that. And there's nothing exciting about an IDF spokesperson standing up and saying things about what Israel did to prevent this and that and the other. It's just not interesting.
How do we get this echo chamber where, I follow you and Deborah and Noah and Joe Paul and Lee and Shai and Eli, and everyone's doing this amazing work, and I love when you guys collab. But when something happens and I'm scrolling through my Instagram feed, everyone's sharing the same content, I'm seeing. So I personally have like a secondary Instagram to make sure I'm seeing the alternative side. But my question is actually, how do we make sure that our non-Jewish friends are also seeing this, the influencer, the social media content, when we know the news is not giving that perspective. So I know we can all whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Zoom, YouTube, whatever. I know we should all like your content and share if you feel comfortable. That's the hope, right? People.
Well, I think
share it to your stories so that all of your non-Jewish friends know that you're that Jew that is going to share content being proud of being that Jew. But what else can we do to make sure that we're not just in this echo chamber and that we're getting everything out?
I'll answer. It's decades of work. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. And you guys need to just know that. I've been at this for 15 years. Not on Instagram and Twitter, mainly on Facebook, where I have a following there. It's not going to be online. Online is one way to go. It's not going to happen until people start saying they're Jewish. It's not going to happen until you do go to some your kids are in high school and all of you are, there's 4 or 5 parents in the park playing with their kids, and until you start talking about Israel. And until you start talking about the fact that you're Jewish, it's not going to happen until you get involved in the community. It's not going to happen until you start doing stuff. It's about doing. And online, I'm sorry to say, is just one kind of like sliver. And it's important, but it's not everything. I actually think the more important thing is to go to wear your Jewish pride. And I'll give you a couple of examples. There are a lot of non-Jewish people reaching out to me. Like, for example, these necklaces that I made. And again, there's lots of merchandise out there, but the reason I made them was because the conversation starters. Now, I wrote a few lines which are directed to our allies, like that forever brother of a friend who's Jewish, honorary Jew. People are buying them. You can go to starsofthetribe.com. It's another place where I'm selling I'm That Jew merchandise, and there are the graffiti t-shirts, which are not for Jewish people. It's honorary Jews. Get them for your friends. and I'm not saying from me, from whoever, from whatever Jewish merchandise you like, people are actually speaking up. When you are able to speak up online, okay, so you spoke up online, but if you're able to have a conversation with someone who is not Jewish, that I have frequently with friends of mine who are not Jewish, they ask questions. They'll, it's a one-on-one grassroots thing. There's no silver bullet. It's going to take a long time, but we are dead in the water unless people start speaking up. And that's why I so respect a lot of the well-known people out there who are saying they're Jewish publicly. And that's not to take away from smaller people, even like myself. Like, I have not really worked in around a year because I'm doing, this is what I'm doing because I feel like I have a responsibility to do. So yeah, I'm paying a price. I absolutely am paying a price, but this is the fight of our times. This is for our kids. This is for our community. The real change will come when people start speaking, when they start doing, when they start raising children who are more involved in the community. It doesn't mean religious. It means growing up. You know what? Here's something I'll show you. Okay. Here's a woman that I really admire. Okay, that leaning into, of course, Sheryl Sandberg. There should be a Jewish children's book about her. There should be a Jewish children's book about Matisyahu already, because what that does is it shows these children from a young age that not only should you be openly Jewish, you should be proud, because a lot of these people are living the values of the Jewish people. And that's something that comes from the home, it comes from the community, it comes from school. And the more we do it, the more we say it, I guarantee you, as a brand builder, the narrative will change. That's why I'm making it my agenda to allow every Jewish person to feel comfortable saying they're Jewish and to take their own agency on
In
that.
whatever way they're comfortable with, and whatever, the louder, the prouder, great. But if do whatever you can, in whatever situation you're in. I wanted to share something that I think is relevant in that don't always assume that silence means that they're not your friend. What I have found with the children and their activities is that many of them have no idea. They're just simply not paying attention. So when we said we can't go to baseball because it's Yom Kippur, they're like, what's Yom Kippur? And it was a learning opportunity for me to explain to everybody what Yom Kippur was. They had no idea. When I started wearing my dog tag to baseball games, it was, what is that? And they just didn't know. And it wasn't, and once I started talking about it, they were like, oh my gosh, we love Israel, or, we're with the Jewish people. They just are not paying attention, whether they don't watch the news or it's not getting into their.
They don't care. Listen.
They don't care maybe, but once their eyes are open to it, that someone that they know that is on their team or at their school that it impacts your friend personally, then they might start caring. So when they hear it, then they might say, like, wait a second, that might not be the case. So I just think let's by wearing just a dog tag or some merch or just speaking up when the opportunity presents.
I would challenge you more. I think that's a bit of a cop-out. I don't think that you should, of course, when you feel comfortable, but rise to the occasion, set the bar higher. Don't just when you're comfortable. Do it when you're uncomfortable. Stop being a wuss. I'm not saying this to the people who are afraid. I'm saying this to the inner voice within you. Is if you get to that place where you're just really scared, then I'm not saying don't be. I'm saying, what are you going to do with that fear? Do it anyway. Challenge yourself. There's someone here that wrote a question, Gabriel Khazan. Guys, I finally figured out how to see the comments. But I just see what I have here. Love all this, but what's his advice for all of us to advocate those that don't do anything and hide in their Jewishness? Be relentless, be respectful, have empathy, don't put them down, talk to them, understand them.
Inspire
Listen,
them.
I was going to the
By example.
I'm not for Netanyahu. I haven't been for years. I mean, I'm not a Netanyahu hater, but I went to all the demonstrations for the year on the streets here in Tel Aviv, and because I just think he has to go, and that's my opinion. I went on a camping trip with a friend of mine that I've known since I was 18, and he was like, "Yeah, I really don't like him." And I was like, "Okay, why?" And he would tell me, and we talked. And I said, "Have you gone to any of the demonstrations?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Why not?" And he goes, "Well, I just don't think that I'd make a difference, And it's a Saturday night. And remember, the demonstrations against Netanyahu were every year. And again, we don't need to get political about that's my personal opinion. The point is, we just talked about it. And 2 weeks later, he called me and he goes, "You know what?" And I said, "What?" And he goes, "I went to a demonstration. And not only did I go to a demonstration, the next week I took my kids." It's one person at a time, and we all have that in us. So, Gabrielle, when you ask, what's my advice? It's not the nameless stranger online. It's the person in your community that you might have a relationship with. It's like, "Hey, I'm going to a demonstration. Hey, will you sign this petition? Hey, this is happening. Do you think there's something we could do about it? Something with the kids maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know how it is in San Diego, but you're a community." So I think that's important.
Yeah, I want to actually jump in because I think something you said, Eitan, earlier, is maybe something for all of us here on this call to really kind of think about taking on as an action item, which is we all see all the Jewish organizations doing all of their things kind of in their own lanes. But what if, and we heard, President Herzog, he talked about, a space where we could collect all these things. And there were some comments earlier about, oh, well, is that area going to be able to include Eitan? Well, if we all, as a collective, start writing and calling our Jewish leadership, our Jewish community leadership, and asking them, can you please start collaborating and bringing these individuals in, like Eitan, like some of the others, who are doing all of this advocacy and are doing all of this work, super grassroots, totally being ignored, by the bigger orgs. Let's all sort of, with a voice, stand up and say, look, there's all this great content that Eitan is putting out. Can we incorporate that and have it be funded maybe by, the state of Israel as part of this new collaborative so that Eitan can continue to produce, because those videos and those conversations are produced and you have to pay for that, right? And it's not even about a salary for Eitan. It's just the cost of production is one that needs to be covered. And so I think as a global Jewish community, for those of us to reach out to the big orgs, the ones with the money, and say, all of us and all of the orgs are doing amazing things. What would happen if we all kind of work together? What would happen if some of the big orgs started helping and funding some of the content production? And I think that really is, one of the I think main action items I certainly would hope that a lot of people come away with. It's not just you sort of donating or buying, Eitan's merchandise and donating directly to him, which I do, by the way, hope that you will do. But it's also, let's start contacting the big orgs. They have millions of dollars, which is great. But we need to be, working together, the community and all of the orgs. We all, to some extent, have the same goal. We're doing it in different ways, and that's great. That's actually part of it, right? But if all of us have this goal of being able to stand up and say, I am Jewish in any context, in any situation, and I'm guilty of this as well. I get into an Uber, I hide my necklaces, and that's, personal safety, etc., which, okay, fine, but I shouldn't have to. I would like to get to a place where I feel comfortable getting into a cab or an Uber where I don't have to hide my Israel, my Jew, right? So that's an action item I would actually throw out to the audience today, which is start contacting the big orgs, start demanding that there's more collaboration between the organizations, that they start to look at the grassroots people, the individuals who are doing this on their own time, on their own dime, and bring them into the fold. I think that, and I saw a bunch of people mentioning Hillel Fuld and Shai Davidai and Elon Levy. I mean, there are so many who are really out there doing this on their own dime. Let's bring them in. Let's support them, not just as individuals, but as a community. That's what
That's a great way for me to show the QR codes so you can support Eitan's work.
Can I jump in to say one thing?
Yes, of course.
It's tricky. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business, and it's very difficult for me. Like, I know how to hustle. I know how to get business. I mean, I've worked with some of the top companies in the world, but this is a completely different ballgame. This is like, I need funding to be able to make these animations, these videos, to craft these narratives, to work with Ellie, if you've seen the stuff that we do. And it's very difficult for me to ask. But I can tell you that that's something that a lot of the advocates are trying to figure out, is how can we continue? How can we continue doing what we're doing, which is not being properly funded? Now, you mentioned Elon Levy, and there are some people who have managed to kind of come in and they demand, certain speaker fees, and they get flown around. And I think that that's important, that they're doing good work. But there are also smaller people who are making a profound impact, and I would even say infinitely more creative and making much better points than I ever could. And I'm saying that as a branding guy, and they're not being supported. So the support is not to carry these people, but it is to do the work, which there's been a vacuum in narrative, not only over the past 30 years, there is a vacuum right now. Right now, there's a vacuum. And that should say something to you about the Jewish organizations. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. And that's not a diss on the Jewish organizations. That's literally, they don't know how. I mean, I branded the Jewish Agency for Israel. I worked with Natan Sharansky. I worked with them for 2 years. It's a big institution, and many of them are. So I think that people need to understand that the advocates out there are not looking to make a buck. They're looking to lead and empower. And something that Jill Altshuler asked is, based on the main objectives of this webinar, can you recap the actionable tools to enhance our messaging and advocacy efforts, ranging from social media posts to community conversations, and find out how to use your voice to support and uplift our global Jewish community? Look, honestly, the non-bullshit answer is you just get off your ass and you do it. And I'm not saying that you're not off your ass. I'm just saying that's the way I speak. You just do it. You share the posts that resonate with you. You go to the demonstrations. You join Mothers Makkah, Mothers Against College Anti-Semitism. It's a Facebook group of 60,000 people. You join her and you see how this grassroots movement is changing life for students. You absolutely go to community events and you commiserate with one another, and you say, bollocks, I'm not able to do anything. And then someone says to you, well, I'm going to this IDF thing next Saturday. Do you want to come with me? It's the actionable tools are not for me to tell you, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just doing it. You can do it too. Something, however big or however small, but something. And it starts with saying that you're Jewish, and then it starts with doing for the community. Because right now, it's all hands on deck. Democrat, Republican, Bibi, Naftali Bennett, Sfaradi, Ashkenazi, Hebrew speaking, English speaking. It doesn't matter. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what is it that I can do? And I bet you there's a lot more that you can be doing, and a lot is on the line. So I'm not saying it with judgment. I'm saying it with all love. But if I can do this with 2 kids and a small business for a year in this little room doing what I'm doing with practically no help and very little funding, which I'm trying to get. I'm trying to raise $50,000 right now so I can hire a project manager and get an office, because it's been a year in a war with no business, living in this house, working with my wife and the kids running around. But if I'm able to do that and other people are able to do what you see them doing, like Joe Paul just released, go and follow him. I am Joe Paul on Instagram. He just released a music video yesterday for the Jewish people. It's gotten a bazillion views. What did he do? He just did it. So if you're a fundraiser, raise some funds. If you're in public relations, help people with public relations. If you're in consumer goods, then find a way to serve the Jewish people on the side with consumer goods. If you're a lawyer, lawyer up. Go to the Lawfare Project with Brooke Goldstein. If you're an entertainer and you're good at social media, get on social media and start speaking up. Everyone can do something. I don't know if that answers your question, Jill, but that's my honest answer.
Join Pure K-12.
But join PRK12. I mean, because of you guys that I'm here. You guys did an amazing job getting me. Not a lot of people have been able to get me.
So let me share a few links.
I believe you, Jill. By the way, it wasn't directed at you, Jill.
There was a comment saying, about the links in the chat. That will all be in the follow-up email that we're going to send. But I'm going to share my screen now and provide some QR codes. Excuse me, with my child screaming in the background, and provide some QR codes for everybody to support Eitan, to support CAN and SAJAC, and about our upcoming events. So here is, so first, here's how you can support. As this, everybody can see all 3 QR codes. Here's how you can support Eitan. You can make a donation to the Am Yisrael Foundation. And again, all of these will be included in our follow-up email. You can buy the I'm That Jew merch. You can buy the jewelry. There's other ways to support him. And again, that will be in the email. But if you take your phone and you hold it over the screen, the QR code will bring up a link. And you can do that really quickly on all 3 of them, and those will all be in your phone. And again, if you are not technologically able, that's all right. They will be in links that we will send out in an email. Here is the Voice of the People Global Survey from President Herzog, his new initiative. This is how you take that, and that's going to help his new council that he's beginning. To support CAN, as Pamela said at the beginning of the webinar, is supporting with micro donations. They're collecting donations and then helping in the community to be able to provide all sorts of programming. And then SAJAC, is the South African Jewish American Community, is trying to expand nationwide. So here is a link to them. If you have a South African Jewish American friend, please let them know that there is a community that they can join. And with that link, here, Pure K-12, we have 2 upcoming events this week. We are Nicole and I are both on the panel for the Jews in School webinar that is taking place this Wednesday. It's 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. And then in San Diego, in person, and with IAC, we are doing a back to school event. Here's the QR code to register. You will get the location upon registration. That is on Thursday. We are purek12.org if you want to find out more there. And thank you to our sponsors, of course, Combat Anti-Semitism Now, SAJAC, Pure K-12, Adopt a Family Foundation, and all of our amazing community partners, and Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, the local chapters of IAC, AJC, Stand With Us, ADL, Hillel, AISH, the JCC locally, the Ken Jewish Community has been a huge partner for this, the Yiddish Arts and Academics Association North America, and Jewish Institute for Liberal Values. The follow-up email will include hyperlinks to all of these organizations so you can see what they're doing. Be involved, go to events, see what's going on. There are so many events and so little time, but one of them will hopefully work in your schedule and you can attend it. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen.
I'm furiously answering people as much as I can. I'm just seeing all the comments, so I apologize for everyone. I wish I could answer you all.
But we will. We'll try to maybe include some answers. Somebody has asked fervently for your email. We will include his email, his website, his socials. Everything about Eitan will be included in our follow-up email. Like everything, every way to support. We will figure out how to get you the postcards, but also you can just go to his Instagram and then share it to your Instagram or on Facebook or on X. Just share them, and really just sharing them will get it to your whole social media community that you don't know who you're going to reach. You never know with the algorithm who you're going to reach and when. So just share all of the work he's doing. And hopefully, even if you just reach one person, that's one more person that might not have known that, Deborah Messing's a Jew and a proud Jew, just to use her as an example. So I'm going to throw it back to Pam to
This out.
Yes, to close us out.
What a good job, Tamar. You're great.
Well done,
Anyway, thank you everyone for your attendance, and I hope that you will continue to support CAN to make programs like this available. Thanks to our Israeli president for sending us a personal video, and of course to Eitan for his most informative presentation. Big thanks to Nicole Bernstein and Tamar Caspi from Peer K-12 for their invaluable assistance in coordinating our webinar, and to Alan Chatayak for introducing Eitan. I wanted to tell you that we can have a very important next event that's actually coming up on September 22nd and 23rd. It's a 2-day lecture series by Brendan Murphy called Why the Jews? Brendan, as it happens, is a Catholic educator who is nationally renowned speaker on anti-Semitism and the church. His goal is to foster genuine fellowship between Jewish and Christian communities with support from Jewish, Catholic, and Protestant leaders. The first lecture will be held at the JCC on Sunday, September 22nd at 10 a.m. And the second on Monday, September 23rd at St. Paul's Cathedral in Balboa Park. Admission is free, registration is required, and should not be missed. We're also thrilled to mention that CAN has made a donation to President Herzog's newly established Kol Ha'am Fund. Thank you, everyone, for showing up today. Your participation has made it an unforgettable, wonderful event. Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you, everyone.